Well, I can't thank you enough for being on the show. I have Michelle Bosch, and everybody might remember about 50 episodes back, almost a year ago, we had Jack on the call. So I've been really looking forward to this conversation, Michelle, because I really wanted this different perspective on the
Thank you.
podcast. So why don't I just kick things over to you right off the bat, introduce yourself and give us some details here.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much for having me. It's an honor being here with you today. And yeah, Jack and I, it's a collaboration and a partnership of almost 18 years. And so we work together. We're one of those rare, couples that can make it work. But a little bit about my background and who I am. So I am Michelle Bosch. I'm the co-creator of the Land Profit Generator program. I am the CFO for our, investment company, Orbit Investments. Jack and I both came here back in 1995, for me, 1997, for him, as, immigrants from Honduras and from Germany. And we came here with basically, a couple of suitcases to our name and our hearts full of dreams. And that was it. And we came here to study. We both got our degrees here in the US, and we did what everyone, expects you to do, which is to go get jobs. And we were both able to, get really good jobs and really live what was, seemingly the American dream.
Mm-hmm.
It was a high paying job, but nevertheless, living paycheck to paycheck, working 60 to 80 hour weeks, 100% travel. And so we started not being very happy about that lifestyle, and decided that we needed to start looking for something else, but it needed to be a side hustle. We couldn't let go of those jobs because our green cards really depended on those jobs. And so we started looking at houses. And like I was telling you right before we started, it was too much for us. We didn't have the courage. We didn't have the capability. We didn't have the knowledge. I feel that it's not a great beginning or beginning point for any beginner in real estate. And so we stumbled onto something that I think probably the fact that we're immigrants gave us an advantage. And what I mean by that is that we came across a concept here in the US called tax liens and tax deeds. And that people here in the US could, lose their property for delinquent taxes. That's something that was unheard of for us. And so we were able to kind of see that opportunity. I actually went to one of the auctions here in Sonoma County. California is a tax deed state. And I realized that a lot of the property that was going for, on the auction was actually pieces of vacant land. And it occurred to us with Jack that, wow, it's been at least 5 years before the county has the power to sell. And so people have kind of made up their mind and checked out, mentally and emotionally, with their properties already, possibly 2, 3, however many years ago. What if we were to contact them and, for the people that are freshly delinquent, and figure out if they would want to sell us a property for something versus just losing it. And so through a lot of trial and error, it took us, a good, I would say 2 to 3 years, because there's no mentors back then, especially not in vacant land, for sure.
Right.
And we perfected, what we call our proven performance letter. We spent a lot of money, testing every sentence, word, headline, everything. And we are in a position right now where 18 years later, we're still able to get, for every 750 to 1,000 letters that we mail out, get anywhere between, I would say, 5 to 15%, response rate. And for every 100 offers that we make, we get about 2 to 3 deals. And our spreads are very comparable, if not better, to houses, especially if once you have a few of these under your belt, you start specializing on higher price property. So a typical spread is anywhere between $5,000 and $15,000. You're not doing anything to the land. There's no termites, no tenants, no toilets, no dealing with foundation issues, with roofing, with estimating repairs. I mean, not even negotiation skills are required, because you're not meeting your seller of the house at the house
Mm-hmm.
and walking through it with them, and trying to basically make him an offer and negotiate something with him there on the spot, which for us, to be frank, because English back then and continues to be our second language, it was terrifying. I'm like, oh my God, I could never do that. With time, of course, that has improved, but when we started, we couldn't think of it. And so we started then focusing on three types of properties that are either infill lots that are either in the path of growth, or that are recreational properties, so that we could sell those quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And the time came, a few years later, when we finally had our green cards, we had permanent residency, and we were able to quit our jobs because our side hustle was already humming. And I remember first year we did about 60 deals, then about 100, the next year about 150. And when we did 150, actually, that was a year where both Jack and I were working on it full time. And we're like, oh my gosh, we're not able to really scale this. And we are now just working just as hard as we were working on the other job. We either need to bring it down so that we can have more freedom, of time, because at the end of the day, we all start our businesses or a side hustle because we're looking for four freedoms. We're looking for freedom of time, freedom of money, freedom of relationships, and for me, incredibly important, freedom of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were like, well, this is, how it is right now, it's not working. It's not providing for that. So we either need to shrink or we need to multiply. And in order to multiply, we realized we needed to really get our process down, our unique process down, and really simplify that so that we can make it repeatable, scalable, predictable, sustainable. The moment we did that, we found out that we could, sell these pieces of land on auctions, on, live auctions. We used to sell about a couple hundred every quarter live here at the Phoenix Convention Center, where we are. And we're still here. And then eventually transition, we became students of online marketing and transition into selling a lot of our properties online, which is how we continue to sell them to this day, very, very quickly, very easily. And by the time I would say 2009 came around or 2008 came around, we had created an 8-figure business, just with land, about over $12 million in notes, just from land notes, because we don't only sell the land for cash, but we also sell it on terms using, seller financing. A typical example is I'm able to buy, a property for $1,500. We can sell it for 15 or 20. Somebody gives me a down payment of $2,000. I've recouped my investment, all my money's back. And then they make payments of $300 to $400, $500 for the next 5-10 years. And so that's typical, a typical note. And so by the time 2008 came around, we had, about $70,000 of passive cash flow just from land notes. And we were in that incredible situation, contrary to many people that were losing their shirts, that we were sitting on quite a bit of liquidity. And so we started really using our land as our cash machine and moving some of those cash profits and cash flow into rentals. Because at the end of the day, we do know that the passive cash flow that we're creating from land has an end. The moment the person pays off their piece of land, that payment stops. And we actually have a name for that kind of cash flow here in our house. We call it forever cash. We're after forever cash, cash that will be there forever. When I was young, my father actually passed away really when I was very young, and he had purchased a piece of commercial real estate. And, that really helped my mother, who, raised me as a single mom, to really, provide for me the best education possible and supplement her income as a teacher. And so I know what forever cash is. I've been the recipient of it, the beneficiary of, somebody having that forethought, basically, and really thinking about him, his family, because he was an attorney, but it wasn't his legal profession that kept us afloat for many years. To this day, my mom holds on to that property, And so we've always been after forever cash. And so we transitioned into houses. We came up, we were buying at a point where we could buy here properties for anywhere between $40,000 and $50,000, repair them for $500, $1000, and then rent them for $900, $1,100. Now, those houses have quadrupled now.
Mm-hmm.
We've actually moved on and, started selling some and went on to move on to other markets where we could again replicate that, buy them again for 50, 60, repair them, rent them, and so on and so forth. And then as we've grown, in our complexities, in our courage, in our capability, and our confidence as investors, we then started moving in 2016. We were like, okay, we're looking at one door at a time. How can we start looking at 100 doors at a time?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we started with multifamily. We purchased our first, large multifamily in Louisiana, 94 units. Then another 96 units in North Carolina, 147 units in Oklahoma City, and we're looking at another 158 units also in Oklahoma City right now. So it's been going through a cycle of what we call the 4 C's of basically committing to something, putting
Mm-hmm.
blinders on that one thing, and doing nothing else because there's so many shiny pennies. And once that was mastered, that we had mastery, and mastery only comes from repetition, from doing deals over and over and over again.
Right.
Once we had mastered something, invest in team, and then moved on to the next, master that, moved on to the next, and so on and so forth. And so that's where we're at. But we continue to flip land to this day because, like I said, it's a gap in the real estate market. Nobody cares to see, explore, and as a result, there's no competition. When everyone thinks about, the real estate, the last thing they think about is about flipping dirt.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, even if there are termites on the dirt, we flip those too.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like, all the accomplishments, the successes, but of course, all of that has come from failing a lot, Jack, from a lot of lessons learned along the way, and in team. I wish I would have, when we started, we would have looked at that. There's 4 pillars to business too. There's why you're doing it, the who, the team
Mm-hmm.
and your clients and who you're doing this for, the what and the how. A lot of our focuses were in the whys, the what, and the hows, and not on the who's. That you don't just recruit them, but that you
Mm-hmm.
need to really develop them, that, we're all in this for whole life leadership at the end of the day, and that you're trying to develop leaders so that you can have that freedom of time and so on and so forth. So back in 2011, actually, we had a team and everything, but I don't think we had really transitioned ourselves, as entrepreneurs, to that point where we were developing leaders. And I kind of like hit a wall and went through some crazy burnout. I had about a period of 3 to 6 months where I was so exhausted, I could basically just in the mornings get up, bring my daughter to school, get her ready, come back, do nothing, literally, get ready again, pick her up, do a couple of hours of homework with her, and then I was exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
And thank goodness for passive cash flow, because there's certain critical, responsibilities that I have always kind of like shouldered, and there's other responsibilities that Jack has shouldered since we worked together, and boy, did he step up in that partnership, during that time period to help me really reevaluate, my life and also how we were going to continue doing business, going forward. And I think that those 6 months and that reevaluation, of how can I develop leaders within our company? It's not just systems and processes, but, but people that really align with you in core values, that see where you're going, that, that have the same vision, mission, that really align with you 100%, that really makes the difference and really makes things easier. People think, well, scale is going to be harder. And yeah, there are some complexities, that come with scale, but they're really complexities of abundance, not of scarcity, like when you start,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, so focusing on team, I wish I would have done that a little bit sooner. And that was what really made us turn the corner and even start looking at large multifamily, really,
Mm-hmm.
in 2016. It really made us stronger. So a really dark night of the soul that at the end, turns into something amazing,
Yeah.
So
That's that that was amazing, by the way. Just you going through that whole progression like that. Could you back up on a minute though? Like
Yeah.
what I think is really interesting what you and Jack do is when it comes to the land thing, and something that I haven't heard anybody say up until now really is the concept of how complicated uh yeah, there's sure a lot of gurus out there, and the status quo is to focus on the single families, whether it's especially when you get into real estate investing for the first time. You know, a lot of people try to jump into wholesaling properties, or they want to jump right into multifamily properties. What I think is kind of interesting is that you guys really focused on the well, you learned those lessons and you ended up focusing on the land. But that really makes a lot of something clicked when you were talking about that makes a lot of sense to maybe that is the best place to start. I mean,
Hmm.
talking about building a foundation, I mean, the
Hmm.
foundation has to be built on the land. I mean, uh, so how did you mentioned you stumbled into that? How did you stumble into it? And if somebody was interested in evaluating their backyard, how do they find these vacant lots and
Hmm. Hmm.
some of
Yeah.
how do they get started on something like
Absolutely. So we, like I said, we came to it from the tax lien, tax deed world,
that? Hmm.
basically. And there was in the beginning a huge correlation, we thought, between tax delinquency and really finding what we call non-wanters, not just motivated sellers, but non-wanters. And as we kept on doing this, over the years, we found out, no, it's not just the tax delinquent people. It's really, we started buying, pieces of land for people that were not delinquent, because we would go to the county and get the entire assessor's roll and just, kind of like, scrub that list and eliminate anything that was not vacant land. And what happened is that a lot of the people that were responding were actually not tax delinquent.
Hmm.
And so that's basically one of the ways. And I probably answered already both questions, but one of the ways to go and find these people basically is you can go to a list broker. There's companies like Agent Pro 24/7. There are PropStream as well is another one. Counted List. If you have a good relationship with a title company will be able to pull up an extract for you. And I would basically, what we do is we look at what are the 15, 20 top fastest growing cities in the country. And then if we decide that we're going to focus on a county where we're going to look for infill lots, it's got to have to be the metro area.
Hmm.
And what I'm saying is probably not New York City, but the other secondary cities, and even tertiary cities that are growing. If we are looking for path of growth type of properties, where in the infill lots, let me back up a little bit. My buyer is normally a builder. So
Hmm.
so you want to think about your exit depending, and then
Sure.
decide which of those types of properties are you going to go. Will your buyer primarily be builders? Do you have good relationships with them already? Then infill lots are probably it. Um, Path of growth, this is where cities are growing. So you don't want to be in the county where the city's at, but maybe one county out when it's
Hmm.
path of growth. You know what I mean?
Sure.
When you're looking at recreational properties, you're looking maybe two counties out
Hmm.
or even three. But have it, just think about it. If somebody is looking to recreate, I don't want to drive more than a couple of hours to go and have fun with my kids. And like, for example, Flagstaff is like a 2-hour drive from Phoenix, and it guarantees cooler weather in the summer, especially
Hmm.
when we're here in Phoenix. And so it's thinking about those things, and then therefore choosing and selecting your counties strategically with your end buyer in mind, is what I would say. And those are pretty much the three places that we personally like going to the counties. But we know a lot of our clients, because now for the last several years we've been teaching this. We were able to simplify the process. Is so unique and simplified that we've been able to replicate that same success now across people from all walks of life: dentists, doctors, truck drivers,
Hmm.
stay-at-home moms, really, because the model is so simple, and it puts your it's a model that puts your family first, that allows you for it to be a side hustle, because that's how we started it. You know what I mean? So I mean, if you're listening to this and you're a beginning investor and you have a job like that you hate and you're trying to look for something, like, I have been there. I was you. I am you. I've just moved on to a different stage. You know what I mean? But
Right.
and so with that in mind, also, the program that we have out there is so incredibly replicatable, because it takes all of those things into account, into consideration.
Sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
See, another thing that I always thought was really interesting, and Jack brought this up when he was on the show too, is your marketing is very different from what I would do looking for a property. I mean, you're really, you're only wasting like one stamp. You're sending an offer like right off the bat,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
getting,
So when we start selecting areas, actually in the beginning, we are sending what we call our neutral letter, where we are not actually sending a contract. We're saying, hey, I know you own property in such and such county. We would love to buy it. Give us a call. And so it's a very non-aggressive type of letter. Yeah.
right.
And once we have identified that there's a specific pocket in a county or a specific state or a specific county where we want to go deep, and where we've already gone through the full circle of saying, of selling the property, and that we know we can sell it quickly and for a good spread, on those counties, we go deep, and then we can blanket, the specific pocket that we know, that we can sell for 20 grand. We offered the first time 1,500 and we know we can sell it for 20. Let's blanket it with, with offers directly, with second offers is what we call it. In a contract directly, where we offer maybe 2-3 grand, because we know we're going to be able to sell them quickly and for much, much more than what we're paying. So, but at the beginning, we don't advise that, because it's got to be an area that you already understand that you can sell really well, and that is homogeneous. Like a subdivision in particular, once you start mailing out letters, you're going to notice there's certain pockets, certain subdivisions where, every lot is 5 acres or 2.5 acres. They're all worth the same thing. So you don't have to be doing research on each one to evaluate value. You know that across the board, it's going to be the same value. So on those, you can make a blanket blind offer, but don't do that at the beginning, because otherwise, you're going to miss out. Once you know an area, that's where you go and blanket with a blind offer.
No, that's good advice.
Yeah.
When I'm acquiring a house, it's easy for me to do comparables to other houses that have sold in that neighborhood or what have you. How do you find or assess the value of the land? Like, is there a way to quickly do that?
So yeah, this is always, part, I would say part art, part science, in that by now, over the years, now for the last 5 years, we even developed our own proprietary software, where we basically take a property from the point where it's a prospect, a mailing campaign, all the way, until it's turned into a sale. We even have built in a module there for loan servicing, if you're servicing your own notes, if you're selling that, using seller financing. But what I wanted to say is that software has now inbuilt in it a one-click comparables, where we can see on Zillow, Trulia and LandWatch, LandFlip, comparable properties, So that's part science. Then you're gonna come across, odd-shaped lots, odd shape, or where you have say 20 acres, and a lot of what is selling in the area is 1 acre. So you're going to have to extrapolate and say, okay, if 1 acres are selling for this, 20 acres, the value is in this.
Right.
Or you're going to have infill lot situations where maybe there's not another infill lot that has sold recently that could be a great comparable, like you do with houses. But then you look at, okay, what is the typical value of the property, of the house that is there? What is the per square footage? And based on that, and if you know that your builder needs to have the value of the land be 10, 20%, whatever it is, you can kind of like back into the value of the piece of land. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there's ways, but for the most part, for the most part, we are able to do it, within, I would say, 3 to 5 minutes. I can really pinpoint exactly, value now on a piece of property. And now, with the software, for people where there are easily similar properties out there, it's like a one click and you have all 3 or 4 comparables there. And we have an offer calculator built in, so it gives you, okay, this is the minimum that we would send out an offer for, and this is the maximum.
Mm-hmm.
And that will be for, I would say, the 80% of the properties. There's 20% of those that are going to require a little bit more to
Right.
really pinpoint and nail down value. But for the most part, most of the the bulk of it will be easily accessible to you.
Sure. Sure. So let's change the subject just a little bit, because
Yeah.
you mentioned uh, getting burnt out,
Mm-hmm.
and I think this is one of the scourges when it comes to, along with analysis paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
Mm-hmm.
hard thing for people to break through. But I think there is a lot of people that burn out and they don't actually realize it, or they don't face it, and they just try to barrel their way through it. So when you were experiencing burnout, what caused you to take the necessary action to get out of that? Frankly, a
Simply
rut.
my body 100% forced me to it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I just physically couldn't do it. Mentally, I could probably focus maybe for a half an hour to an hour, and then I was done. So
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like, I didn't see the warning signs.
Right.
I didn't listen to my body. I just did exactly what you just said. You just keep pushing through, because that is what is ingrained in us. I don't know if it's also the immigrant gene of this incredible drive and hunger to basically create a world better than the one we left. But I see it happening even in, native, people that are born here in the US, also there's type A workaholics, pretty much,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and so my body was really the one that forced me to, okay, I need to stop. I can't do it, even if I wanted to do it. Even if I had the will to do it, my body and my mind just couldn't do it anymore. And that's when I started looking a little bit more into also a much more holistic, whole life approach, and really understood that a win in the financial category now had meant a win, yes, a dark night of the soul moment, but a win in my ability to say, okay, let me start looking now at my health. Let me start looking now at, the category of my spiritual life, of my
Mm-hmm.
mental life, of my emotional life, my character, my relationship with my, my parenting relationship with my daughter, my relationship with Jack, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And what is my vision for the future, and what am I here to do? Because we accomplished, we got there. I kind of like, put my head up and realize that we were there, we arrived, and now what?
Right.
And now what, and I think probably that was also part of what was going on, is that I wasn't living that fourth freedom of purpose. And I'm like, so what is this all for,
Mm-hmm.
and because a lot of people at the beginning, your number is the why, and then eventually the number, you get there, and then now what, now what am I doing, and for me, I recognize, after that period of burnout, that part of my legacy here is to, I have a daughter that I want her to stand in the shoulders of my own delusional confidence, of my capability, of my drive, of my
Mm-hmm.
courage, so that she can, do greater things, and her children can do greater things. And maybe 3 generations down of women, they're going to say, well, my grandma, came from Honduras, and she did all those things, even though, she didn't have a lot of resources, a lot, I just picture, but that became at the beginning, a motivation for me, was my daughter. And then it was like, okay, how can I extend this to more women? How can I get more women to see that
Mm-hmm.
it's not just about reaching money or a money number, but how can we think about money much more from the point of view of what it can do for others,
Right.
and how can we recirculate our wealth? Because women are much more prone, not that men don't do it, Jack, but women are much more prone to look at, that's how we're built, that's how we're wired for safety, for protection, for nurturing, for really take care of our people. Yeah. And so
Mm-hmm.
we're much more wired to really look around us and see who needs our help and how can I recirculate my wealth in a way that it impacts and it helps others.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, so it was a combination of that. I stumbled into yoga as well. I started doing a lot of meditation practices, mindfulness practice, breath work, that really helped me. I also found an amazing naturopathic doctor, because when I used to go to the doctor, my traditional doctor, they're like, well, you're just stressed, Michelle. You're a busy mother. You're a busy working woman as well. And there's nothing wrong with you. Just, chill out, take a hot bath, and you're going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And no, what I found out, after having visited my naturopath and having all kinds of blood work done, is that I had incredible also deficiencies, really physiological deficiencies in minerals and vitamins, in issues with my gut that were affecting also my, those levels of fatigue that I was feeling. So I kind of like took this crazy holistic approach, and I was like, okay, I don't even know what's working, but 6 months later, I was ready to tear down trees again. But yeah, it was an amazing time now in hindsight of like self-reflection. And like I said, I had the privilege of having the passive cash flow to kind of like fall back on, in terms of like, yes, we didn't have to do things out of desperation. And from that moment on, once I kind of recovered, and we were again this unbeatable team together, is that our expansion was not so forceful.
Mm-hmm.
Before, it was an expansion that was about meeting every resistance, pushing through every resistance, and just with force, mental power and will, overcome whatever and do whatever it takes. And you know what? At the beginning of our business, that sometimes that's what's required when you're on startup mode. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
But at some point, and for me, this was this point back in 2011, during, once the burnout had recovered, is that I wanted to start expanding in a much more harmonious type of way. And if I want to say this, in a much less masculine type of way. And I'm masculine not because of man, but we all have, some masculine and feminine energy in us. I always think of feminine energy as very creative, very not scheduled, not linear, very kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
panoramic. And masculine energy is very linear, very sequential, because of my background in finance, and I was doing a lot of operational type of work in a business. I was in a lot of masculine energy for many, many, many years, to actually, pardon my language, get shit done, like get results. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And so for me, I'm like, I realized I needed to start balancing, bringing another person that was already in my company ready to step up, to become much more of that generator of results, so that I can really turn into a little bit more of a creator of opportunities. And
Mm-hmm.
when I'm in creator of opportunities, I'm much more in feminine energy and feminine mode. So even if for men, when you're out there creating opportunities, creating partnerships, alliances, you're kind of like in feminine energy, and there's nothing wrong with that. So it's creative energy, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was for me an incredible distinction to make, that I needed to move from being the generator of results. If you're, a sole business owner, and it comes with team is what's going to make you unstoppable. Team is it's what's going to help you create something that is bigger than you.
Mm-hmm.
um, and really have fun doing it, because you know, like I said, when I say a harmonious expansion, I'm like, I want to have fun doing it. You know, I want to
Hmm.
have fun doing it. I want to know that it's for something that is bigger, that I might not see the whole, you know, the whole puzzle of how I fit into, you know, this amazing world that God has created, you know, but that I am somehow in the future at some point going to see how the pieces work together, and I'm working for that higher purpose type of work, you know.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah. No,
I
I
don't know if
really
that kind of answered your question.
yeah, no, but I really appreciate you talking about that because um, I think there's a plague going on in our work environment right now. You know,
Mm,
I think we have started to romanticize the concept of the grind, and
mm-hmm.
people will continue to grind and continue to grind and continue to push. And like you said, there's a lot of value in that, but eventually you're going to grind your brakes right off, and next thing it can cause a lot of damage, and
Yeah,
I'm
and,
just a
and
little
and
worried about that.
yeah, and I think it's because startup mode requires it. There's no question about it. Like even that word of balance, I hear it now, and like I get it. I know the good intentions that people have behind that word of, you know, the word balance.
Right.
But now I know that it's about whole life leadership, and that there's seasons, and then there's seasons for grind, and that you need to plan for seasons of rest and rejuvenation. Even like when you work out right now, like at 12:30, I have my workout lady come here to my house, and she's like, Michelle, are you getting enough rest? You know, it is so important. Like muscles grow during rest, not while we're breaking them down with weight. You know, you
Hmm.
grow during rest. So that there, so understand that there's going to be seasons of grind, that there's going to be seasons of rest, that you're going to have to kind of like build into your calendar. Because if you're a type A, you know, workaholic, you won't.
Hmm.
Unless it's scheduled, it's not going to happen. You know what I mean? And that, yeah, that you want to, you know, start transitioning out of that generator mode, and with that is going to require that you step up, that you really, you know, engineer your next level of growth, that you really start looking at things that a more mature entrepreneur and business starts looking at certain key performance indicators, you know, to realize, okay, you know, I have been saying yes to all these kinds of properties, but these kinds of properties are not bringing the 80% of the profits.
Hmm.
What's bringing the 80% of the profits is this other 20%.
Right.
This is where, but if you don't even recognize, you know, that you need to kind of like step up, you know, in your entrepreneurship, let's call it, you know, uh, belt system, like to bring martial arts into the picture, like you're going from a, you know, white belt to yellow belt or whatever the colors are to black belt, that to get to black belt, that you're going to start having to look at, you know, key metrics, so that you really focus your, you know, your resources on the right things, you know. And you're not so diluted in stuff that brings revenue, but at the end of the day, how much are you walking away with from all those things that are creating revenue? You know what I mean?
Right.
So identifying the types of properties for us that brought us more, you know, more profit, was crucial, and really, you know, growing up to looking at a dashboard weekly. You know, there's certain things in the dashboard that I only look at monthly. There's other things that I look quarterly. But all of those things, I think, come hand in hand. There's like some magical, more artistic stuff, like, you know what I mean, by, I don't want to say magic, but my more woo, or that, perhaps that's the word, of looking of, you know, this leadership, and you stepping up into a bigger leadership position. And there's things that are really concrete that
Hmm.
you have to do in order to step into it, like looking at numbers, like investing in team, training team, you know, there's both of these.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's a
And
good
then
way of putting it, is taking that break, because sometimes those breakthroughs, like you get so focused on your work and the grind, you kind of put on blinders to
mhm.
other options and other possibilities, and you likely are going to be missing something. To have that break every once in a while, sometimes those aha moments are me driving into town, or just when you've given yourself a little, like you stepped away for a moment. There's a lot of value in that.
Oh yeah, like sometimes, you know, we come to difficult situations. We all have challenging days. And sometimes, it's us talking about it and then us doing something completely different and doing something playful, with my daughter, and in those moments of recreation and playfulness and rejuvenation, guess what? Freaking downloads happen for me from the heavens. And I have like this brilliant idea, or Jack gets that brilliant idea, but it's from not having constantly, ruminating over it, but giving your brain some space for magic to happen. Yeah, they're so important. Even during the day, or even during the week. That's another thing. I used to plan which is part of why we had to reschedule a few times here. I used to schedule my week like completely back to back with all kinds of activities that were unrelated during the day. And then eventually I'm like, no, we now follow, even our executive assistant follows it. Like we have play days, we have production days, and we have planning days.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's days that are, that are production, but even on those production days, I always give myself 30 minutes to 45 minutes in between one time block and another time block to really kind of like recover, to kind of like smell the roses, if it's a beautiful, day of sunshine, to really like appreciate such a glorious day. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because I used to have back-to-back stuff from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, with not even, 15-minute breaks in between. And that was, to be frank, killing me. So then that was one aspect of it. And then there's other days that are planning days, where with our team, training with the outside world. And then there's play days, And then you're going to have days where you plan for a production day and all hell breaks loose. And what do? You just get through them and jump back on the horse the next day.
Yep.
Pretty much. But such that that has created incredible efficiencies, actually, this play, plan, and production, in that you're not trying to change from this kind of energy, which would be podcasting, to training energy, to coaching energy, to negotiation energy. You know what I mean? There's time blocks or certain days that are only designed for, a certain type of production or planning activity or whatever, so that you have a vanilla day, a chocolate day, to a large extent, let's say 60 to 80%, or a strawberry day, and not have Neapolitan ice cream. I always tell my our team is like, guys, are you having Neapolitan ice cream days? We're not efficient if you do. Please make sure that your schedule looks like, like either, for the most part, a vanilla day, a chocolate day, or a strawberry day. It's the influence of my 12-year-old sometimes that I bring into my work, and that's why I talk about ice cream. So anyways.
That is a great concept. I've never thought about it to doing something like that. In fact, we've been teaching and talking on the podcast a lot, is the concept of what you focus on is what is going to grow. But if you don't give it the proper focus, it's like having a magnifying glass and you're going to try to start a fire.
Yeah.
It takes that focus to get things going. And if you don't have it held there long enough, it's not going to grow. It's not going to catch on fire. It's not going to produce the results that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Too much attention, too many places.
And that coming to focus over and over again, it's like an ongoing thing, Every quarter I come across, stuff that I'm doing that I'm like, why am I doing this? And I'm like, and so I have like a little stop doing list. I'm like, I need to stop doing this and delegating some of the stuff, or if it's not giving us the ROI that they should be off of our plates, you know what I mean? But it's a constant pruning back. It's a constant effort and discipline to come back to focus. It's not just something that you're going to do once. It's going to be there all the time, because we as entrepreneurs, we're curious people. We see an opportunity and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is innovation that could bring acceleration to my business. And you want to go and see that, you know what I mean? And so, so it's something that you constantly have to be working at it, and recognize, what is a shiny penny and what is not. If that opportunity aligns with my genius, aligns with the genius of the company, and aligns with what I'm already doing this, and I can really implement this in a strategic way, why not? But if it doesn't, leave it. With Jack, we actually do something because he is like the ultimate entrepreneur. We have something called the Colby. I don't know if it's like an index where you can, there's 4 categories. Are you a fact finder? Are you a follow through, which is an organizer? Are you a quick start with strives and spontaneity? Or are you an implementer, a person that works with their hands right now, a lot? So Jack is our quick start in our company. I'm actually much more of a fact finder and organizer. And so with him, what we have to do sometimes is like, okay, that's an amazing idea. It's an amazing opportunity that you're bringing to the table. Let's put it in the parking lot. Let's put it in a parking lot for like a week, and let's revisit that in our next weekly meeting and see if that still sounds like a good opportunity and a good, idea. And it's not just for him. Mine go into a parking lot too. And let me tell you, 80% of those are, I come back to them the next week. I'm like, well, that was a shitty idea. That's not, you know what I mean? That was something like that in the spur of the moment. But if you would have followed that impulse and you bring your entire team with that impulse, you take them off of the main thing that we're working on. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like I said, it's a constant thing that you need to be looking at, and bringing yourself back to focus. It's not something that you do once. And there is incredible value in it. Otherwise, you end up going in, what I call them carousel rides, where you get on that carousel ride because in that moment it seemed like a good opportunity. You go for a great ride and explore it. You get off the carousel and you're in the exact same spot financially. Let's not do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know what? I just realized the time, and I didn't mean to keep you on this podcast for as long as we have, because I know you're really busy. So we probably should wrap up, but
Yeah.
I really appreciated your time, Michelle. This was such, I could listen to you for another hour. So, you and Jack both, this is your wheelhouse. It's obvious of that. Like, so if people wanted to get a hold of you or get in touch with you, there's so much more for you two to share with people. How do they do that?
Yes. So we have you can go to landprofitfund.com. And we have also a Facebook group, a free Facebook group you can join, kind of like enter our ecosystem. It's called the Land Profit Generator Real Estate Investing Group. And if you just put Land Profit Generator on Facebook, the group is going to pop up. There's about 8,700 land investors in the group. And we have, created over the last 4 or 5 years now of having that group, an amazing community, that is incredibly generous with their time, with their knowledge in terms of helping the beginning investor. Because that's really, now that we're sharing our methodology with the world, we want to be a hero to the beginning investor because we have, like I said, we have been there. And it's just that we've moved on a little bit into the next phase, but we understand and we remember how it was to be
Mm-hmm.
And everyone there, like I said, it's incredibly giving, aligns with our value of, of giving back, of really helping. If they're 2 steps ahead of you, of really helping, answering questions. You post a question, you're going to have 15, 20 answers, from people. In the beginning, it was us, Jack, myself, our coaching team, really pouring our heart in there, and we continue to pour our heart in there. But now sometimes I go in there and I go through the feed and, every question has been answered amazingly. And I'm like, only if I see, okay, I can add a little bit of something, then I will add. But for the most part, in my opinion, we're very proud of that group. It is the #1 incubator of land flipping businesses on the planet. I highly suggest you just, join us, come and check us out. If you have an amazing woman in your life that you want, to have her step up in terms of, taking and helping, shoulder, not the financial responsibility, but that wants to understand, that wants to, dream build with you. If you're just a guy listening to this, and all of the financial worries are on your head, and you not necessarily, share them with your wife, but you would love to, and she's interested and would love to as well, and learn about real estate. I have a podcast as well called Inflow. And it's for not just inflows of cash, but what we're talking here is also about inflows of ease and inflows of grace in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
So we have also another podcast for our cash podcast that we host with Jack together. So there's many, many places that you can come. But I think if you go to landprofitfund.com, that is that's basically a masterclass where you can learn about our land investing strategy.
So, well,
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough again, Michelle. This was awesome, and I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Jack. It was a pleasure. It was my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.